Nope, there we go. Hey guys, I'm a little remote and things are a little bit slow here. Welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. I am talking to Darlene with St. Barnabas Services. We're going to be talking about technology and older people and all kinds of really interesting things. As you can see, I have an unusual background. I am in Amelia Island for the Senior Living 100 conference. Darlene also looks like she's from a hotel. She is in a hotel. She is thousands of miles away from me on spring break, I assume. And so we're going to get into our conversation right after this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. So, hey, Darlene, this is a conversation that started at CES in Las Vegas. I did one, I think last week, with somebody I'd met at CES, and I claimed that that was going to be the last one. Obviously, I have that wrong, and I think this is really the last one of all the contacts. I had so many great conversations there. So, Darlene, let's start with a little bit about who you are, who St. Barnabas is.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was so great meeting you at CES. You taught us about how to use AI to collect business cards, if you remember that. So my staff are still talking about that and how we can incorporate that into our daily life. So I really appreciate that tidbit of information.
Yep, I'm using it here at this conference. So
yeah. My name is Darlene Kiyan. I'm the CEO of St. Barnabas Senior Services, and we work with older adults and caregivers to really help them to live well, feel well, age well. And so whatever that means, we are looking at all the different aspects of what it takes for older adults and caregivers to have the best quality of life they can and how they can safely live the longest in their homes, as long as it's safe and they can do what they want. So we really look at what kinds of programs we can provide to make that happen. So technology, of course, is really a big part of that. St. Barnabas has been around since 1908. So a few minutes, we didn't start off focusing on technology, but just looking at all the trends, we really have kept up to date on all the things that we need to do to keep our families in their homes as long as it is safe.
Great. And you're physically located where?
We're physically located in Los Angeles. We do programs across the state of California, as well as online. So that could be anywhere in the world. And we focus on our online learning with technology and with disaster preparedness.
So let's just talk a little bit. I want to, I know, of course, you've just coming off these big fires in LA, and I want to talk a little bit about that and how, how that impacted you, technology and older people and those kinds of things. But I guess more broadly, I'd like to just talk about your view of technology and older people.
Sure. So we did a project actually with USC, and it was to design a curriculum for older adults for people who really didn't have access to technology and needed to learn the basics. So that's really where this started, was how can we make that happen? And through that, what we learned is older adults also needed to learn why. Why was this important? It just wasn't enough for them to be able to learn how to use WhatsApp and email pictures to their family members. They wanted to be able to use it on a day-to-day basis. And so the fire was a great example of how important it was that people understood how to use technology and what that really means. We were impacted. The Sunset Fire, fortunately, was very small. We did have many staff and members who had to be evacuated, and we had to close one of our centers for a few days while they got the fire under control. But we're very lucky that the impact was minimal. But it really showed how important it was. I was speaking with one older adult, and he said, I don't drive. I live by myself. What am I supposed to do if I get evacuated? And he was in the evacuation zone. So in our conversation, we talked about the importance of understanding what resources are available and how to find them. In Los Angeles, Uber and Lyft were providing free lifts for people to get out of the zones. And his comment to me was, well, of course I've used it, but I used it because other people set it up for me. So we focused on how he could use those apps, what it looked like, so that he could feel safe and know that he could get out of his home safely.
So this is really interesting to me because, you know, I use Uber or Lyft on a fairly regular basis. And, you know, if somebody said, well, what's the tech you use? I'm not even sure I'd list it. It's just become sort of part of my daily routine, right? And so I think sometimes we forget how much of our lives are really driven by technology. And that if you don't have that, I mean, maybe you don't really miss it, right? So are there, do you have sort of a list of essentials that every older person should have?
Well, we have a list that every person should have.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, not just older people, but in our list, we really do focus on caregivers and older adults, and just really anybody, as well as that timeline. So if there is a disaster, or if there's a reason why you leave your home, what is it you either need to stay there, or what is it that you need to leave? And we call it a go bag. We partner with the California Office of Emergency Services to provide curriculum, to provide resources, to really teach people and educate them on the importance of having your bag ready, but also to have the supplies you need in your home so that if you need to stay, what is it you need to stay, but also where to go to access that information. I mean, that's really important. People don't understand how easy it is to use your phone to access that information.
Yeah, I feel now that you're talking about it, I think I should have a go bag, and I don't. I will tell you, however, that I travel a lot for conferences, and I have never experienced a real fire, but I've had 4 times where I've been in a hotel in the middle of the night and a fire alarm has gone off. And I'm going to confess that the first time I did it just like I was supposed to, I got dressed enough to be decent, went out. It was kind of cold and chilly, and it wasn't very much fun. I left my computer behind, and now I don't do it that way anymore because I got certain stuff I got to take with me, like my computer and warm clothes. So, and I know go bags aren't exactly technology, but that's a part of it, right?
It really is. And it's not only the to-go bag that you would use every day. It's for examples like you're talking about where you're in a hotel room. Where are your essentials? What do you need? And how much time do you have to get out? So for example, during the evacuation, and this could be not only for fires, it could be if there's an earthquake or a hurricane, you are either in the evacuation zone or it's an evacuation warning. So there's a period of time you have that you can evacuate. So that also really educates you on how much time you have to do that. So what can you get during that time? And knowing where your essential documents are, where your technology is, whether it's a laptop or a phone or a jacket, so that you take those essentials with you. Or if you have more time, then you can get your pictures, then you can get other mementos that really mean a lot to you.
So when you look at the technology that most older people have, most have cell phones at this point,
Hmm. Yes.
and laptops or computers. Yes, no.
I think people either have a laptop or they have some type of tablet. Yes.
Okay.
And for
And
people who don't have it, it's available, whether it's through the library or through organizations like us. We have a lending library where we will lend out technology, whether that's iPads or laptops to our members as well.
and what do you find is the sort of the biggest barrier? Where are the deficits? What do people typically have the most difficult time learning or understanding?
That's a great question. So I would say that the deficit really comes with getting on. People don't understand how to just get on the iPad, how to get on the laptop, or even on their smartphone. So if you can't get on, then you can't do anything.
Didn't do anything.
So as simple as knowing your password, knowing what needs to be password protected, and then setting it up so that it's conducive for you. Do you need it to have Face ID? Do you need it to have your fingerprint? Or can you remember what the password is? I think just that basic is the most important thing to get people going.
Yeah, and that's really important. I was having a conversation with somebody here at this conference this week, and we were talking about passwords and security. And so, as kind of a background, there was a presentation about security, and one of the things that the presenter said was that you want to use as much protection as you can, not because bad guys can't break into your computers, because they basically said bad people can break into any computer, but they're going to break into the computers that are easier to break into than the ones that are hard to break into. And so you want to make it difficult so that they'll go break into somebody else's computer instead of yours. But the other thing he said that I really, really liked a lot was that he said for him, what he uses is sentences for his passwords, because it's actually it doesn't really matter whether it's numbers or characters or letters, because it's all possible to the person who's breaking in. And so how do you remember what your password is? And he says, I just use a sentence that I can remember that's meaningful to me, that's got at least 18 characters, and I just type that sentence in. It's easy for me to remember. Nobody else is ever going to figure it out. And I really like that. I hadn't heard that before.
I actually learned that from my sister, who was also a senior, that was what she did as well. And I thought that is brilliant. It's something that's simple to do, but you can add your numbers, you can add your symbols, and you won't forget it because that sentence is meaningful. So I think you're right. Having passwords that are simple for you, but difficult for somebody else, and that you will remember are really, really important.
Yep. I like that a lot. So how about AI? Can we talk a little bit about AI and seniors? And let me set the stage a little bit. So they did a little pitch fest here. And one of the companies that got up and were presented was a AI based tool where geared primarily towards older people, where you could have conversations like it was a human, except you're really talking to AI. What do you think?
I think that AI really does have a future, and has a future for people who are socially isolated, who need reminders, who really do need someone to talk to. I do think currently there are a lot of the limitations, and the limitations are things like the wake up name. A lot of people can't pronounce those things. If English isn't your first language, it's really hard for them to say a lot of those names. And we have looked at robots, we have looked at even things like Siri or Alexis. People have a really difficult time, depending on their first language, to either to pronounce it properly, and then they can't even get on to those simple AI to talk to it. And then when you look at AI, uh, helping people understand that it's not always correct and that you do have to fact check. So there are currently limitations, but teaching people how to use it really is brilliant. It's very useful for translation. We use it all the time in our centers because we have so many people that speak so many different languages that it's been very, very useful for that.
So yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking I'm not a big Alexa user, but it's tied to my TV, and I have trouble waking it up. And my first language is English, so I can only imagine if English isn't your first language, that's really tough to do.
Yes, and I think developers need to really think about that as they're developing the new technology. Is do these words work for everybody? Is it simple enough, or can you change it so that wake up words can be something different in different languages? And that right now isn't readily available, unfortunately.
So the talk to me a little bit about teaching older people technology. And then as I'm asking this question, my wife has a friend of hers who's late 70s, early 80s, and she has an iPhone. And she has so much trouble with it. And she's been to the Apple store and she's taken every class that they offered like 28 times. And she still can't seem to figure out how to use it. How do you solve that problem?
That's a great question. We were very fortunate. We received a grant to scale our program 2 years ago from the California Department of Aging to address exactly that issue. And when we first were putting together the program, we thought, who is it that we're going to get to teach these classes that are going to relate to older adults? And we thought about people with a background in computer science, the people who work at Apple Store. And I had a little bit of an epiphany where I thought, okay, who is it that really teaches their parents, their grandparents to use electronics? Who is it that understands it but can simplify it so that it is understandable? And it's kids. So
Okay.
we recruited, and not kids, I mean younger people.
Right. Right.
We recruited university students that were used to teaching their parents, used to teaching their grandparents on the simple ways to use their technology. And that's how we really started our basis of our program, is having people, not that they were technologically advanced, but people who grew up with technology, people who used it during the pandemic, who learned in high school, who learned in university on how to learn from being online. And so that was the basis of our whole program in overcoming that barrier, is having people who could relate and could really break it down and make it easy. It's not me. I get very frustrated when I have to teach my mom, like, how do you not know this? Or my sister. And but our people who went through the pandemic and learned how to learn online really understood the difficulties, because they grew up with, if you recall, the people who came into Zooms at the very beginning and were hijacking it, or really just how to learn. So that's been very beneficial for us to really break that down.
So do you have classes I can point her at?
Yes, we do.
I'm,
We have
I'm
both
gonna go on
one.
your site. I'm gonna do that after we're off air. One of the things I find really interesting is that there seems to be this sort of, you either like and get technology or don't like it, don't get it. So my dad, who passed away 2 or 3 years ago, he was just curious about technology. In fact, I just a couple of weeks ago was in he passed away about 3 years ago, but his wife's starting to clean up his stuff, and I was in his office, and there were all these MS-DOS books and discs and things that were completely obsolete that I tossed. And then on the flip side, I've got my brother, who's a couple years younger than I am, but we both qualify, I guess, as seniors at this point in time. He can't hardly use his cell phone. And so there's and maybe that's also true for younger people. I don't know.
Mhm.
Is it just there are people who get it and people who don't? Or, I mean, are people who are interested and people who are not?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that really across the board. We have a lot of older adults who love technology, and they're right there with the instructors teaching the other older adults how to use it. But then we do have, for example, staff who are challenged to log in and do their time cards. And so what we're really focusing though on is how to use technology in your day-to-day life. We're at the point in our society where we don't have a choice. The pandemic brought a lot of advancements with technology that, for those of us who use it, are great, right? You go to a restaurant, you scan the menu, you can pay online. All of those things have helped make our lives easier. But unfortunately, for a lot of the people who aren't interested, or like your brother, don't have that ability or interest in it, it's made their life more difficult. And I'll give you an example. We took a group of older adults who've been learning about technology to a Dodger game. We're located in Los Angeles. And so part of teaching them how to go to the game, there's no pay per tickets any longer, that it's cashless. And so they had to learn how to download the app onto their phone, how to put their ticket on the phone, how to scan. And then when they got to the park, they have reverse ATMs where you put cash in and get an ATM card out so that they could buy food and drinks while they're at the game. So just to go about your daily life, there's so much technology that you and I might take for granted that's further isolating people who don't understand how to do those basics.
Yeah, I didn't really. It's been a long time since I've been to a baseball game. Tamara asked this question: do you find meeting rooms in senior living communities often need to have tech updates to their AV equipment to bring them up to date with current trends like Zoom? And I want to even expand on that a little bit more, because as you know, my audience is primarily are people who own and operate senior living communities, and so if you were to sit with a senior living operator and just talk through their technology stack as it relates to residents, and perhaps family members, what are the things that you would see as being important? And let's also address this question about common areas too.
Sure. I would really look, if I was going to be sitting with somebody at a senior living facility, for example, and looking at their technology, the first thing I would look at is how old is the equipment? Is it really up to date so people can use it? We know how fast technology moves. And so if there aren't basics like a camera or a microphone, and a lot of desktops don't have that, then it makes it very difficult for people to really interact. And as simple as there are some, I'm trying to think of an example. Um, I was I personally was using a bank account and I had to verify my identity, and I did that just by showing my driver's license, and but I needed a camera to be able to do that. And so if I had a computer that I couldn't use for that, then that makes it difficult. Or even telehealth. You need to have privacy. You need to have a camera. You need to have a microphone. If you're going to be offering technology, it really needs to meet the needs of what people need it for. And looking at that. And the same with Zoom. And there's so many organizations like ours that do teach technology and they teach online that really at this point it's very easy to have a Zoom class and be able to talk to your instructor no matter where they are in the country and interact with the people that are in that class. So I would really be looking at what are the basics that you would need to be able to foster that type of learning.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One other question I'd like to ask, I'm going to come back to senior living in a minute, but one of the questions that I don't want to neglect is the challenges of fraud and scams. And it's clearly it's not just a senior problem, right? It's a problem that everybody has. But I've got my 92-year-old stepfather living with me. And the thing that scares me the most is he gets, I don't know, 3 or 4 scam calls a day on his cell phone, right? What are you telling people about how to protect themselves against those online scams? And what should senior living operators be thinking about in terms of protecting them from scams, their residents?
I think that is a great question. They are getting so advanced on how they are perpetrating their crimes, whether it's on your phone, on your internet, emails. And so a lot of our education really is also about how to recognize what's a scam. And, unfortunately, even if you are tech savvy, they're getting also very savvy. So people really need to be careful. We have quite a few classes that do address identifying a scam. We have a YouTube channel where we have classes that people can go and look at the videos so they can keep up to date as well. And with the scams, I think just basic. If you don't recognize who it is, don't click on it. If there's a link in it, don't click on it. Even if you recognize it, phone the institution that sent it to you to make sure it's legitimate. The IRS doesn't send you links. Your bank won't send you a link unless you ask for it. And that's what's really important. And not being afraid. We have a lot of older adults that are getting the scams that are either from the police, the IRS, that are threatening them that they need to pay right today or they're going to go to jail. And that's just simply not true. But it is frightening, very
Yeah,
frightening.
it is, and I mean, I've gotten I think I've gotten calls in the last week from your credit card's been charged $3,000 for a new Mac Pro, right? And Amazon security, I think, is what they say, and of course, they're all just scams,
Yep.
and it makes it really really difficult. So when you look at technology today, and you sort of think about what it's going to be like, I don't know, 5 years from now, particularly for older people, what do you think it's going to look like? Maybe what's your dream for what we're going to have?
Wow, that is a great question. Things have progressed so amazingly fast. And my dream is really creating technology that is integrated in our daily life so that we can stay in our home longer, so that we can stay independent longer, whether you're living in a senior independent village, or you're living in your own homes, or you have any challenges. For example, hearing aids. Having hearing, there's many hearing aids now. You need an app on your phone, and you can change whether there's ambient noise, what conversations you're listening to, which is brilliant. And I even think of the headphones that I'm currently using, and they're not even in my ears, if you can see that. And so that's really helpful, so that especially for older adults, putting AirPods or headphones into your ears is really uncomfortable. But there's so many different types of um, things that you can use now that really is for your own personal situation, that's helpful for you. And I think that's what's really important. I love all of the advancements in the smart homes, on what we can do to protect ourselves, to make things easier. As simple as having lights that you can turn on. So when you wake up at night and need to go to the bathroom, you can be safe. You turn your light on, go to the bathroom, come back and turn it off, and you're not walking in the dark, stumbling, or potentially having a fall risk because you can't see. So I really see this as having smarter houses, smarter vehicles. In Los Angeles, we have Waymo, where there's nobody driving. It's the driverless vehicles, so people are able to feel safe because they're going into a vehicle and be more independent and be able to go different places. So that's my vision, is just seeing how things progress to really allow us to be more independent and to be safer as we age.
Have you ridden in a Waymo car yet?
I have not. They were introduced just in the last year. I've been on the waiting list, and every time I try to go in one, they're either not available, or I'm going someplace where they don't go. But I have many friends. My daughter as well uses Waymo all the time, and they love it.
Yeah, I was in Las Vegas a few months ago, and I don't think they still have them there, but for a while they had driverless taxis. I was like, oh man, I want one of those. But I've never had the opportunity. So if I'm a senior living, it seems to me like if I were operating a senior living community, independent living for sure, maybe even assisted living, probably not memory care, but for that level, what are the essential pieces of technology that a resident should have?
I really believe when you are living whether independently or assisted living, that the first thing to look at is the technology you need to be safe in your rooms, in your homes. And so having sensors for fall safety, there's all different types of sensors you can get, whether they're plugged into outlets or they're in your light switch, so that if someone does fall down, it can detect that, ask if you're okay, and call for help. Those things are very important. They're non-invasive, and they would really alert whether it's people that are at the assisted living facilities or your family members that you are in need. Just right off the bat, how can we be safe in our rooms? There's also a lot of technology now coming up that I saw actually at CES that reminds me of Star Trek, where you come to the door and it opens automatically. So you have a little fob and it opens each of the doors. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but that way, our older adults don't have to worry about having keys. I know my mom is 92 and lives in an independent living home, and she has a really hard time having her key, unlocking the door, opening the door because it's very heavy, pushing her walker through, and then having her bags from whether she's been shopping or if she went for a meal. Those are very, very difficult for her. So if she had the opportunity to just have her fob come up to the door and it unlocks and opens for her, something simple like that would be really great.
That would be that. I love that a lot. So we only have about a minute left, but I think one of the challenges, and this is certainly not just a challenge that older people face, it's a challenge we all face, is that there are dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds, perhaps thousands of choices. If I were going to go out and buy a new laptop or a tablet, or I were going to buy, I don't know, just about anything, how do you figure out the right thing?
That is a great question, Steve, because you're right. There's so many different things. I would really recommend if someone is going to keep it simple. Maybe go with somebody that does understand technology, or even when you go, talk to the salesperson. They are always very, very helpful, and tell them really what you're looking for so that they can assist you with identifying the right type of tablet or laptop or iPad that you need for your situation. If you need something with a keyboard, maybe an iPad's not the best situation, a tablet with a keyboard in it or a laptop. But being very clear what you're looking for, or not even what you're looking for, because sometimes we always don't know what we're looking for, but what you need it for. What are you going to use it for? That is actually much more helpful and to identifying what you need.
And so I've got to ask this. You may not want to answer, and I'll let you get away with that. Apple or Android?
Ooh, I really don't want to be promoting either, but
You don't have to answer. You can take a pass if you want.
I'll take a pass, but I will say again, I'll come back to what is the easiest for you and what are you comfortable with? That's what's most important. You
Right.
know, we have a lot of older adults and just a lot of people who are much more comfortable with Apple because it's very simple. But then on the flip side, so many more people really enjoy having that Android and having tablets or having an iPad with Microsoft. So it really is personal.
Yeah, my wife is this big Apple user, and I can't figure it. It's too simple for me to use with just this one button, right? So I'm an Android and a Microsoft person. So, I want to give. We're actually out of time, but sort of like to have you give me a sort of 30, 45 seconds on St. Barnabas and why people should connect with you and how you can be helpful to them.
Well, thank you so much for today. I really enjoyed talking to you. St. Barnabas offers all types of programs, and I will tell you they are all free. We do not charge for our classes, whether we're going into senior living facilities or it's online. We have classes in person, we have classes online. They're available to people online across the country or even across the world. sbssla.org, as you see here, is our website. Our YouTube channel is SBSSLA 1908. That's the year we were founded. So at SBSSLA 1908, Facebook, Instagram, SBSSLA. We provide all kinds of information, videos in multiple languages so that people really can be comfortable in the language that they're comfortable with, learning the things that they need to learn to be safe and to live well, feel well, age well.
Darlene, this has been a great conversation, and it's so important because technology just drives our lives. I sometimes wonder what it would be like if we had one of these theoretical EMP attacks that wiped out all our technology. I don't think we know what to do, right? But the education part is really important. And in some respects, it's gotten a lot better. I think back to what it was like to have to hook up printers or get connected to the internet in your home, and it was a half a day project, and yet that simplicity also has made it easier to do, which means it becomes more complex. And so these kind of resources are super important. Also want to say thanks to Jada for producing behind the scenes, and we will be back on Friday for Foresight TV.